For spine-chilling and sinister cases of déjà vu, unexplained encounters revealed and exposed. In the quiet suburb of Glenwood Springs, Ohio, life sped along blissfully. But underneath the polished fronts of the houses and the manicured lawns, dark secrets swirled like thick fog, suffocating any whispers of unease. For Sarah, 35 and a dedicated mother, something twisted began to unfold. "What's happening to me?" she thought as moments turned into chilling flashes of déjà vu. Each pulse of familiarity revealed sinister connections with local disappearances that gripped their peaceful neighborhood. All tangled with Mr. Hargrove, the seemingly charming neighbor with an unsettling past. One evening, as the distant laughter from Mr. Hargrove's gatherings threaded through her home, panic gripped her. "Why does it feel like a trap?" she mused. Laughter echoed like a haunting melody, blending with her racing heartbeats. Every time she approached his house, chills crawled down her spine, a warning ingrained in her instincts. Friends would gather there, joy overshadowed by an eerie thrum beneath the surface, like shadows lurking over light. Something was terribly wrong. Then came the invitation, bright and colorful, delivered to her doorstep. A whimsical family event at Mr. Hargrove's home. Sarah's hands trembled as she held it, her heart pounding with each word. Tom, her husband, brushed off her concerns with a distracted smile. To their children, this was simply an adventure. To her, it felt like a descent into darkness. The family's laughter echoed against the walls of her mind, but it quickly soured as she recalled the chilling news articles about the residents who vanished one by one. Urban myths, they called it. But Sarah's gut twisted at the thought of ignoring the truth. How could she trust the authorities when it felt like a web of deceit surrounded them? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As night fell, the inviting glow of Mr. Hargrove's porch light flickered like a sinister beacon. A sudden knock broke the silence, and Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. There he stood, Mr. Hargrove, his smile unmistakably wider, deeper with something predatory lurking behind. "I believe your children are ready for their next adventure," he said, holding out an envelope, the emblem twisted into something grotesque. Panic surged through her, an instinctive clawing desire to protect her children from the abyss lurking behind that friendly facade. Tom's phone buzzed sharply, the screen lighting up with a cryptic message that rippled down Sarah's spine. Time slipped away, and with each second that ticked, trust dissolved into bitter fear. The air thickened as she stepped closer, desperate to hide her children from the dark reality they no longer could escape. Where would this horror lead them? The question hung heavy in the air, thick with dread, begging for an answer as the shadows loomed closer, engulfing their once safe home. The moment stretched unbearably as Sarah's mind raced. The glowing envelope felt like a serpent slithering in her hand. The laughter from inside Mr. Hargrove's house ebbed, replaced by something darker, a whispering wind that carried secrets. Her children's faces danced through her thoughts, innocent and unaware of the danger. Would they even understand if she tried to warn them? "Sarah?" Tom's voice cut through the haze, pulling her back. He looked between her and the terrifying figure before them. "What's going on?" His brow furrowed, concern flashing across his features. "It's just a party invitation, Tom. Nothing for us to worry about." She had to keep her voice steady, convincing not only him but herself too. Yet as she glanced back at Mr. Hargrove, the predatory grin enveloping his face made her blood run cold. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," he said, a faux gentleness threading through his words. "Your children could have so much fun if you let them." A chilling undertone lent a menacing weight to his suggestion. Tom laughed uncomfortably, trying to break the tension. "What do you say, kids?" He turned to their two children, who were peeking from behind Sarah's legs, eyes wide with uncertainty but drawn to the laughter. How about it? Sarah's heart raced. The pressure behind her ribs felt like a stone. No, we can't go. She spoke far too loudly, sparking confusion in her husband's eyes. Tom, we can't let them. I can't shake this feeling. Mr. Hargrove's smile faltered for a brief moment. Even that fleeting hint of displeasure sent shivers down Sarah's spine. He stepped forward, invading her space, his voice lowering to a whisper that felt like venom. You can't shelter them forever. They need to learn about the world. She recoiled instinctively, trembling. Leave us alone. Laughter echoed from within, not the playful sound of children but something twisted, as if the very walls of his house were alive with watchful eyes. Tom glanced at her, confusion darkening into concern. I think you're overreacting, love. All the neighbors go to Hargrove's parties. Exactly, Tom, Sarah implored, panic rising in her throat. Look at the people going in. They don't come out. You're not listening to me. Please. Her desperate plea seemed to hang in the air, momentarily paralyzing Tom's thoughts. His eyes softened, words teetering on the edge of disbelief. You're scared, I can see that. Scared? We should be terrified. She glanced back at Mr. Hargrove. The man hadn't moved, eyes glinting with a knowing malice that only intensified her fear. Fine then, Tom said, still trying to hold the uncomfortable situation together. Let us not go, okay? We'll just say no. But the way Mr. Hargrove's laughter cut through the air made her stomach sink. He tilted his head, a predator enjoying its game. Oh, I wouldn't say that just yet. You see, dear Sarah, once the door opens, it's south hard to close back. You and your family are bound to join the fun one way or another. Stop him, Sarah shouted as dread gripped her vital organs, realizing their precarious fate hung on a thread. The dark allure of the house seemed to reach out, beckoning. The shadows twisted, dark fingers grasping for them. Tom's face transformed as the chilling realization seeped in. We need to go, but it was too late. The sudden clamor of remote laughter erupted, an eruption of unsettling joy that sent a shockwave through her body. They were surrounded by people, grotesque shadows creeping closer, and Sarah felt her heart stutter in response. The door creaked open wider, and in a heartbeat, Sarah knew they were ensnared in something far beyond their comprehension. But what just revealed to her promised far more sinister truths lurking in the darkness. After all, Mr. Hargrove smirked, the adventure has just begun. What would await them inside? The chill of impending doom gripped Sarah like a vice as the door to Mr. Hargrove's house swung wide. Shadows swirled in the entrance, their resilient fingers writhing like tendrils of smoke, beckoning them to cross the threshold. The laughter erupted again, sending an icy tremor through her veins. It was unlike any sound she had ever heard, sinister and glad, an echo of malicious glee that reverberated against the nighttime air. Tom, she whispered, her voice barely rising above the night's tension. We have to run. But Tom stood frozen, a statue caught between her fear and the allure of the unknown. The children clung to her legs, their innocent faces twisted in confusion, craving the laughter that beckoned like candy from a strange hand. We're just going to take a quick look, Tom said, his voice strangely light. We won't stay long. Look, Sarah exclaimed, the dread swelling in her chest. Did he not understand the desperation of her warning? No, you don't get it. It's not safe. The people who go in don't come out. Mr. Hargrove's smile widened, teeth gleaming like sharpened knives. Ah, but I senti that all part of the fun? You'll see, just a peek won't hurt. Sarah felt her blood run cold. The shadows seemed to shift, growing dense and alive, the walls of the house pulsating with something altogether inhuman. Come kids. There's nothing to be afraid of. Tom turned back, coaxing them with a brave facade. Suddenly, he stepped forward, a man entranced, pulling Sarah along as if the house itself was magnetized. It's just a party, right? Just some fun. Each step felt like trudging through quicksand, the world around her growing warped and unreal. She could feel the heat radiating from the threshold and the fervent whispers rising from the depths of the house, thin tendrils of shadow wrapping around her ankles, pulling her further into the suffocating darkness. Stay close, Sarah shouted, the panic clawing at her throat. She finally wrenched her hand from Thomas' grasp, planting her feet and wresting the children back. We're not going in, Sarah, Mr. Hargrove sang, his voice syrupy sweet, like honey drizzling over fear. You are making a terrible mistake. His eyes gleamed with a twisted promise, a malevolence she couldn't begin to comprehend, and she knew deep down that they were in the grip of something horrid. What happens if we don't go in? She demanded, challenging the creeping dread inside. What will you do to us? The eerily jovial laughter from the guests at the party stuttered, then fell silent. An uncomfortable hush enveloped them, heavy and oppressive like a matted fog. Tom fumbled with his words as he turned to her. Maybe yes right no. Sarah screamed, the primal fear ripping through her. Don't you see? We can't trust him. We can't go in there. Then, a sound like the scraping of nails against wood echoed from the shadows, and a sensation unlike any other washed over Sarah. It was terrible, a shifting, a presence that tinged the air with ice, seeping into her very bones. Leave them, Mr. Hargrove chuckled darkly, and Sarah's chest tightened as she felt a strange compulsion pulling her closer to him. Tom's expression twisted in confusion, caught in the enigmatic web spun around them. Maybe we should hear him out? Tom, Sarah screamed, desperation lacing her words. We need to run. But as she grasped the fear-laden uncertainty in his eyes, she felt darkness encroaching on their sanctuary, gnawing at them from the edges of reality. Suddenly, the ominous laughter erupted again, flooding her senses and drowning out her thoughts. Without warning, Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, beating in rhythm with the deep, booming echoes of laughter that swallowed them whole. Tom's face paled, stark realization flashing in his gaze, yet it seemed like an eternity before he could form words. We need to go now. But with every passing second, the shadows closed in tighter, the winds whispering their concert of terror. And just as Sarah spun around to flee, the world around them twisted. The house quaked, shifting as if alive, and her children vanished from sight, their screams swallowed by darkness. Where are they? She screamed, panic clawing at her throat. A final chilling laugh filled the night air, washing over her with a cold dread she couldn't escape. As she stood breathless and alone, Sarah felt the heavy weight of the door behind her slowly creaking shut. Was it too late? What new horror awaited her now that the darkness began to stir? Sarah's pounding heart resonated in her ears as she spun around, urgency electrifying her limbs. She had to find the children. The suffocating darkness encased her like a shroud, and for a moment, all she could see were drifts of shadow that moved like living creatures. The echoes of laughter taunted her, a wicked symphony woven into the very fabric of the night. Tom, she shouted, her voice breaking, swallowed by the relentless void. Where are you? The silence was deafening, oppressive, curling around her like vine-like shadows. She was utterly alone, the very walls of the house thrumming with a pulse that felt ancient and malign. This is a mistake, she breathed, a surge of anger stoking the flickering flame of courage within her. It has to be. Suddenly, a flicker of pale light emerged in the distance, a flickering flame like a candle-esque glow. Sarah dashed toward it, her hope igniting fleetingly. Each step rang with the echo of her fears, the shadows twisting around her ankles, whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. As she neared, the shapes of figures came into view, twisted silhouettes looming as if poised for a performance. They stood gathered in a circle, fixated on the central point. Panic surged again. Where are my kids? She gasped, eyes darting between the figures. One moved forward, stepping out of the gathering murk. It had the face of a child, smiling and eerily familiar, yet utterly foreign. Mommy, it hardly whispered, voice cracking like a dry branch. Sarah's heart seized her daughter's features, yet the eyes. They were vast, hollow voids that mirrored the house around her. What would happen to you? The words clawed their way up her throat as the figure came closer. What have they done? The answering giggle was chiming, discordant, rising above the murmurs that wove between the others. You'll see soon enough. They hopped backward, revealing her children Jake and Lily standing beside Mr. Hargrove, who looked far too pleased. The moment froze, a tableau of despair crystallized in time. The kids' faces wore wide smiles, the kind that Sarah always loved to see, yet now twisted into something grotesque and unrecognizable. Shadows flickered around them, licking at their limbs, urging them to join the dreadful waltz of the house's unholy game. Please, she cried, hysteria threading her voice. Come back. You don't have to do this. But the figures remained fixed, eyes sparkling with a malevolence that sent chills dancing down her spine. Come play, Mommy, they chanted in unison, their voices hollow, each syllable dripping with a haunting tone that sang of promises broken. She staggered back. Sarah's anger morphed into resolve, the kind that roars in the face of terror. No, she exclaimed, her voice crashing against the darkened air. I will not lose you to this madness. A gust of rancid wind clawed at her, pulling at the edges of her resolve, but she thrust back into the shadows. The figures wavered, their faces dimming, the laughter growing faint yet still echoed in the air, reverberating through the walls. Find them, the chilling whisper echoed, slithering through her mind, wrapping around her thoughts as tight as a serpent. The shadows seemed to pulse and shift, and for the first time since entering, a sliver of fear pierced the veil of her fearlessness. Suddenly, in the corner of her eye, she noticed a glimmer, an unclosed door at the far end of the room. It beckoned to her, a promise of escape. Heart racing, she sprinted towards it, determination propelling her forward, ignoring the cries and laughter behind her. As she reached for the doorknob, a blinding light erupted, momentarily making her shield her eyes. Sarah, a voice called from the depths of the light, resonating against the darkness, both familiar and strange. Kids, she rasped as the door swung open. But before she could step through, cold fingers entwined around her wrist, a grip so strong it made her skin crawl. Mr. Hargrove's voice, low and sinister, whispered into her ear, "You're not leaving that easily." What would she risk to save her children, and what lay waiting behind that ominous door? The grip tightened, pinching the skin around Sarah's wrist like a vice. She turned her head sharply, her eyes locking onto Mr. Hargrove's face. His smile was wide, almost maniacal, revealing teeth too white and too sharp amid the gloom. You think you can just waltz out of here? He taunted, his voice smooth as silk but edged with a chilling undertone. No, she shouted, her voice thicker than the oppressive air. Drawing on her last reserves of strength, she yanked her arm away from his grasp, but he held firm, refusing to let go. In that moment, everything around her dimmed. The flickering candlelight faded into darkness, as though the very essence of the house was drawn back, leaving only the shadows to swirl around them. The children, once so eager, began to merge with the darkness, their joyful faces fading into emptiness. Panic surged through Sarah, a tidal wave of raw fear that threatened to pull her under. Stop, she cried, desperate. You can't take them. Mr. Hargrove's face distorted slightly, his expression flashing impatience. It's not what you think. I'm not taking them, they're already mine. Will you join them? The shadows behind him twisted and writhed, forming indistinct shapes that crawled towards her, cold and hungry. She shook her head vehemently, stepping back, though Mr. Hargrove advanced, leading the shadows forward. Join us, Sarah, he growled, the timbre of his voice pulling at her resolve. It's so much fun once you let go. Suddenly, the floor beneath her began to shudder, a low rumble that rose into a growl beneath the weight of the house. The walls pulsated as if alive, and the shadows coiled tighter around her ankles, pulling her down. They whispered her name, their voices sweet and sickly, like honey laced with poison. The door. She had to get through the door. Mustering every ounce of will, she reached for it again. But the closer she got, the more the shadows clung to her, itching against her skin like they were alive, breathing her in. Leave them be, she yelled, tearing her focus back to him. They are my children. "You're mistaken, Sarah," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "Children lost belong to the house now. They've chosen." The words clawed at her heart, a mix of anger and despair bubbling inside. She couldn't allow this evil to take root in her family. "Can't you see?" He pressed dangerously close. "The house loves them, craves their joy. You can save yourself, let them go. You don't want to be part of this dance." "No," she roared, and in a wild lunge, she tore herself free of his hold. The shadows shrieked like banshees, releasing her just long enough to stumble a few steps back. She felt the tangible weight lift, the grip of despair loosening momentarily. But the children stood frozen, a chimera of frightened echoes trapped within the darkness. The pale glow of the door beckoned, a beacon of hope amidst the despair. With every shred of courage in her, Sarah bolted, her feet pounding against the wooden floor. Shadows screamed, angered by her defiance. "Run, Mommy," they cried, the voices of her children a twisted melody of desperation. She darted for the door, heart pounding, lungs burning with each breath. She could feel the cold tendrils of darkness reaching for her, hungry and relentless, but she refused to be consumed. Just as she grasped the doorknob, a dark form materialized, a wall of shadow, blocking her escape. She gasped, trapped in a corner with the house closing in. The dim light flickered, and she realized she was out of time. "Choose," Mr. Hargrove's voice boomed, echoing through the suffocating space. "Your children or your life." The choice loomed heavy, one that would seal their fates forever. In that fleeting moment, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. What was she willing to sacrifice? As her thoughts spiraled, the door trembled, rattling as if echoing the weight of her decision. Would she launch herself into the unknown, risking everything? Or would she stay and fight, hoping to save the two lives that meant the world to her? The shadows continued to surge, their whispers rising to a cacophony as the walls began to close in. "Time is up," he sneered, the darkness now a living entity, pulsing with life and menace. And in that brink of despair, Sarah felt something shift inside her, a defiance swelling. The fight wasn't over yet. But what choice would she make, and would it be the right one? As the shadows surged toward her, she took a deep breath. And then the world collapsed into darkness. What awaited Sarah on the other side of that door? And at what cost would her choice come? Darkness enveloped Sarah, wrapping her tight like an ancient shroud. She could feel the weight of the house pressing down on her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. The whispers intensified, swirling around her, carrying taunts, laced with familiar cadence. Searing heat flared and waned, only to be replaced by a bone-chilling cold that sent shivers cascading down her spine. In that deep void, she fought to find herself again. Faces of her children danced on the edge of her consciousness, their innocent laughter twisted into a haunting echo that gnawed at her heart. "Darling, help us," they cried, suspended, trapped amidst the terror. What would her choice be? Sacrifice herself or risk everything for them? Every nerve screamed for her to run. Yet, she hesitated, torn between fear and love. "Join us," a voice purred softly, sinister yet inviting. It seemed to drift from the shadows, slithering around her like a serpent. "No," she gasped, shaking her head violently as bile rose in her throat. "I want to lose them." Suddenly, an image bubbled into her mind, as sharp and clear as crystal. A family portrait, taken on a sun-drenched day, smiles wide, eyes twinkling with promise. Why had their laughter turned to anguish? She felt the tug of the past, pulling her towards the shadows, luring her deeper into despair. "You can be free," the voice coaxed. "Feel the warmth of laughter again." She squeezed her eyes shut, desperate to hold on to that flicker of hope. "No, you can't take them from me, you can't." With a sudden fierce surge of will, she screamed, "You will not win." The void rippled at her defiance. Light erupted around her, illuminating figures in the gloom. Her children, their faces smeared with darkness but still recognizable, were reaching out in agony. "Mommy," their voices wove into a tapestry of dread. "Get away from them," she howled, lunging toward them. In that moment, Sarah felt a jolt of energy. Surging through her veins was the will to protect, to fight against this force trying to tear her family apart. The shadows recoiled, hissing like agitated serpents. "Leave them. They are ours." She could feel Mr. Hargrove's presence shifting, circling her like a predator toying with its prey. His laughter echoed, growing in pitch and intensity as he neared. "What will you do, Sarah? You've faced the abyss. Now it wants you back." Suddenly, clarity struck. It wasn't just a fight for her children. It was a battle for her soul. She could almost see the invisible threads binding them to the darkness, like puppets on strings. Determination surged in her, making her pulse quicken. "I'll cut the strings and I'll save them." With a forceful swing, she lunged forward, her fingers brushing against the spectral shapes of her children. They felt cold, but there was warmth beneath. Their essence crackled through her, igniting an ancient power, a maternal bond that screamed against the vile intent surrounding them. "Mommy, help!" they cried, voices melding into one desperate plea. Mr. Hargrove's laughter dulled as shadows recoiled, whispering fears and regrets, clawing for her. They clung tighter, but she didn't waver. "Hold on," she shouted against the chaotic noise. "Together we'll shatter this." She focused, vision blurring as she reached deeper into the darkness. There, in that visceral chaos, she felt the light of hope flickering in the distance. Her heart raced, pulsing in synchrony with their cries. As she grasped them, the shadows surged around them like a storm. Their forms flickered, waning as if on the edge of existence. "Now," she shouted, urging them with all her strength. "It's time to break free." The house trembled, the walls vibrating with rage, shrieking like a wounded beast. She could feel it. They were piercing through the malevolent grip of the darkness. Yet the way out was still shrouded, an impossible labyrinth of terror. But that light flickered steadily, a beacon of salvation, and just as she was about to grasp it, a voice rumbled deep within the shadows. "You dare defy me?" Sarah felt the cold tendrils grasp her throat, squeezing tightly as if to silence her and erase her defiance. The room twisted, and for a brief moment, she felt herself slipping, but the light, it was everything. In a final, desperate leap toward freedom, she cried out once more. Would they plunge into the light, or would they remain trapped in the abyss forever? As darkness closed in, she fought, thrusting forward with every last ounce of strength. "Do not let go." And then, a heavy silence fell. What lay ahead when the light finally engulfed them? A new beginning or merely a deeper abyss? The silence shattered like glass. The light burst open, enveloping them, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah felt weightless, a serene breath of hope. But then a roar erupted from within the dark, a surge of anger that made her stomach flip. "Foolish woman," the voice screamed, its cadences twisting and echoing. "You think you can escape me?" The brightness flickered, then dimmed. Shadows lunged, clawing at her, wrapping her in a frigid embrace. Panic clawed at her throat as she tried to shield her children from the suffocating darkness. "Mommy, we can't breathe." They were gasping, their spectral faces twisted in terror, the dark tendrils wrapping tighter around them. "No," Sarah shouted, her voice breaking as she reached for them. She planted her feet, summoning every fiber of her being, determined to pull them free. If only she could punch through the dark. If only the light would. "Your children are mine." Mr. Hargrove's voice slithered through the chaos. It dripped with disdain as if they were mere objects to him, toys to be taken or discarded. The shadows swirled like a cyclone, building, roaring louder, relentless. "No," she screamed again, but her voice was tiny against the tempest. "I won't lose them." Then a sharp jolt rushed through her, like a lightning strike igniting fire in her veins. Sally, her eldest, whispered his name. "I won't let you hurt us." That name grounded Sarah. It was a lifeline, a pledge. The shadows shrieked, their grip faltering as her heart generated warmth, a raw energy that pulsed outwards. Together, she roared, urging her children with all her might. "We can do this." The air vibrated with her determination. The light blazed again, growing brighter, wider, as if the house itself was shattering around them. Walls cracked and splintered, revealing glimpses of the world outside. Blue skies, lush green fields. Reality beckoned. Was she crazy, fighting for a life that had felt so distant for so long? But there was hope glimmering, a shard of promise in the chaos. She felt the warmth of her children strengthen their grip on her, and like a thread pulled tight, they all surged toward that radiant glow. "Hold on," they shouted, all voices merging into one massive surge of will. The shadows growled, furious and hissing. "You are nothing. You're merely lost." But she wasn't lost. Not anymore. She was their mother, and mothers don't let go. Drawing strength from the very essence of their connection, she pressed forward, pushing through the walls of screaming darkness. With one last roar, they channeled everything into breaking free. Now, a blinding light shattered everything. The darkness shrieked, tore, and folded in on itself like paper. There was a cacophony of sound as reality ripped apart, and then nothing. For a moment, there was emptiness, a ruthless stillness. Sarah blinked, vision clearing. She was in a field. The sky stretched overhead in a tranquil blue, and her children were safe at her sides, eyes wide and glistening. Relief flooded through her, followed closely by confusion. "Where are we?" Sally whispered, looking around, but the unease prickled at the back of Sarah's mind. Something felt wrong. They stood next to a winding dirt path lined with unnaturally quiet trees. Shadows cast by the swaying branches didn't move. A heavy silence lingered in the air, thick and eerily calm. "Are we free?" her son asked, voice trembling. In the distance, a figure emerged, indistinct but growing nearer. Tall, shrouded in a cloak that flickered at the edges just like the darkness they had escaped. Sarah felt her heart plummet. "No, oh God. No," the whispers began anew. "You've only stepped into another shadow." And as the figure approached, the grip of terror closed around her heart again. What if this wasn't escape at all? What awaited them now? "Look out," she shouted, but it was too late. What hell was this? As the figure stepped into the light, revealing its face, Sarah's breath caught. A chilling realization swept over her. This terror wasn't done with them yet. The fight was far from over. Could they truly survive this again? The figure inched closer, its shadow swallowing the fading daylight. Panic surged in Sarah's chest, a relentless tide that threatened to drown her. She couldn't see the face yet, only the hollow promise of dread that wrapped around her like a vice. "Mommy!" Her son's voice broke through the thick silence. "What is that?" "I don't know," she whispered, her heart pounding. Every instinct screamed to turn and run, but her children were rooted to the spot, their eyes locked onto the approaching horror as the figure came into view. Sarah's breath hitched. Staring back at her was a face she recognized, yet the eyes were deep pools of shadow and despair. It was her own reflection, twisted and distorted, anger radiating from its spectral features. "Do you see it?" Sally cried, trembling beside her. "Mom, it looks like you." This wasn't a trick of the mind. It was her. But it wasn't. The dark version smirked, an unsettling grin that hinted at mischief and malice. It beckoned with a crooked finger, as if summoning them into the heart of darkness. "No, stay back," Sarah shouted, stepping in front of her children, terror clawing up her throat. "We want to come to you." "Foolish choice," the dark doppelganger drawled, its voice a sinister mimicry of her own. "You think you can escape your truth? You think you can outrun fear?" And then it lunged. Sarah's heart raced as she instinctively shielded her children with her body. Time slowed, stretching into eternity as the dark figure surged forward, hands outstretched, fingers curling like claws. The air around them thickened, suffocating her resolve. "Run!" she screamed, shoving her children back along the dirt path, terror fueling their flight. They stumbled, the ground beneath them rumbling ominously, a warning of what loomed behind. "Mommy, where do we go?" her son gasped, panic-laden breaths matching the frantic beat of her heart. Sarah scanned their surroundings, searching for a way out. The trees stood silent, watchful sentinels. The field had transformed into a walled prison, shadows clasping together tightly like heated iron bars. Then, a shriek echoed, filled with the raw sound of malevolence. The shadows flickered, warping and twisting further into towering figures, emerging from the depths of the forest. Thin, elongated forms, mouths gaping wide, pale faces of the lost, torment etched into each polished line. Your truth shall consume you. The dark reflection laughed, its presence barely a breath away. You cannot escape who you are. Mommy! Sally cried, pulling at her sleeve, eyes wild with fear. In that moment, Sarah realized they could not outrun this terror. It was woven into the very fabric of their existence. No, she whispered, swallowing hard. We will face it together. The shadows tightened around them, a swirling mass that mirrored the chaos in her heart. Gripping her children's hands, she felt a flicker of warmth amidst the chilling grip of panic. Together, she said, her voice steadier now. We face this together. But as the sinister figure closed the distance, whispering dreadful truths, Sarah's courage was put to the test. Could she really fight what lived inside her? Another scream erupted, echoing in endless torment, forcing her forward through spiraling darkness. And just before the world folded into itself again, an overwhelming truth dawned. This wasn't just a battle for survival but a desperate quest for self. The figure lunged, and then oblivion swallowed them whole, leaving behind a lingering question. What awaited them in the depths of their own fears? What remnants of the dark past would come to reclaim them? The darkness enveloped them, a cold, viscous shroud that made it hard to breathe. Sarah felt her heart pounding in her ears, its steady beat now a frantic war drum. A fog clung to her mind, murky and thick, as if trying to drown out her thoughts. She squeezed her children's hands tighter, grounding herself in their warmth, terrified that letting go would mean losing them to the shadows. Mommy, I can't see, her son whimpered, glancing around, eyes wide and shining with fear. Just stay close to me, she urged, straining to see through the blackness. The trees towered above them, their gnarled branches twisted like skeletal fingers reaching down, threatening to pluck them from this world. The ground felt alive beneath her feet, pulsating with a low hum that resonated deep within her bones. Who are you? Sarah shouted into the abyss, voice trembling, struggling to sound brave. Your greatest fear, the echo of her doppelganger replied, as if her own insecurities were embodying into a horrid image. What you refuse to confront. A chilling laugh reverberated through the air, a playful sound that dripped with menace. Shadows morphed, weaving tighter, coiling around them and distorting the landscape. Face me, hissed, the voice slick with disdain. You cannot escape. She pushed forward, panic coursing through her, urging her to run. But where? Each direction looked the same, swallowed by the consuming darkness. She turned to her children. We have to keep moving. A sudden choking sound erupted from Sally, who was blinking rapidly now as though waking from a nightmare. Mom, I don't want to play this game anymore, she cried. Neither do I, Sarah said, her breath shallow. But we have to be strong. Together. Yet as the words left her lips, the shadows thickened, wrapping around her legs, pulling her down. She stumbled, gasping as the weight of despair pressed against her chest like an anchor. Then, the shadows began to weave together, forming grotesque faces that swirled around them. Each face a reflection of her own fears: failure, loss, vulnerability. The chilling figures whispered the names of voices she recognized from long ago, shadowy specters of abandoned dreams. Mommy, I can't breathe, her son cried, struggling against the tight confines of the dark. Sarah's heart sank as she looked into his terrified eyes. He sensed it too, an insatiable dread they all shared. Fight it, she shouted through clenched teeth, clutching them close. We can overcome this. We have to face it together. But the figure loomed larger, its twisted smile growing wider. A shadow lunged toward her son, reaching with fingers tinged with the icy chill of despair. In a split second, A surge of determination filled Sarah. She would not let it take her children. No, she screamed, feeling the rush of energy through her. She pushed against the overwhelming tide, calling forth a fierceness she didn't know she had. You won't take them. I'll fight for them, I'll fight for us. The doppelganger recoiled slightly, and for a heartbeat, the shadows hesitated. The air hummed with energy, crackling like static. But just as quickly, the momentum shifted. The shadows lunged forward again, relentless. You think that you can win? It sneered, eyes glinting with malicious glee. Acceptance comes at a price. As they drew nearer, the darkness thickened. Time itself distorted as the world began to fold in on itself, an unseen force dragging them deeper into despair. Sarah felt her grip loosen, the echoes of her children's cries fading into silence. Clenching her jaw, she prepared to confront whatever awaited them in the depths, the pulse of uncertainty shrouding their fate. A blinding light suddenly surged from somewhere beyond, illuminating the shadows momentarily before they seemed to recoil in fear. What is that? Sarah whispered, shielding her eyes. A mommy? Sally's voice quivered. No, called the doppelganger. You cannot have them. It is not their time. And then, as the light engulfed them, everything shattered into fragments. What lay behind that light, and could it truly save them? From their darkest hour? Blinding light washed over them, bright and fierce, engulfing Sarah, Jake, and Lily in its warmth. Felt like a rebirth. Darkness, that soul-crushing weight that had pressed on them for so long, dissipated in a flash, melting away like wax under heat. Sarah gasped as the world flickered into focus, and she stumbled forward, tumbling onto soft grass instead of cold, unyielding ground. Are we okay? Jake's voice trembled, small yet full of hope. We're safe. Sarah reassured them, her voice quivering with relief. She looked around, urgency coursing through her veins. They were on the edge of a serene forest. Sunlight dappled through the leaves above, casting soft, dancing shadows on the ground. Felt alive. It felt like home. But behind them, a dark shadow loomed at the edge of the woods, a vision of the figure that had haunted them. It stood still, its wicked smile lurking between the trees, a reminder of the terror they had escaped. What is it? Lily asked, her eyes wide as they flitted back to the dark entity. That's not who we are, Sarah declared, shaking off the fear as she grasped her children's hands tightly. They were together. They were free. We found each other. We are stronger than that. With renewed purpose, Sarah turned her back on the darkness, leading her children toward a sunlit path that stretched ahead, lined with flowers rich in color and fragrant with promise. Move forward, no looking back. They tread with certainty, their hearts pounding in unison, fueled by the spark of courage that had ignited between them. Behind them, the dark figure shifted, seeming to writhe in rage, but Sarah couldn't afford to think of it now. What do you think that thing was? Jake asked, eyes darting nervously to the shadows. It's the fears that try to keep us from being who we are. But they're just illusions, Sarah replied, each word hanging against the air, filling their hearts with warmth. We face them together and we can keep facing anything, as long as we stay united. Soon, as they continued, the trepidation faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of freedom. Light danced through the branches overhead, illuminating the path ahead, and they paused to take it all in. Mommy, look! Lily pointed to glittering trees that shimmered like the stars before dawn. It's beautiful. It is. Sarah swallowed, her heart swelling at the sight of joy painted on her children's faces. With every step, the warmth seeped deeper. And we deserve to enjoy it. This is just the beginning. The path curved, leading them to a clearing bursting with life. Laughter and cheer echoed nearby, and as they stepped into the sun-warmed meadow, they found a gathering of families, all smiling, sharing stories' vibrant colors, and an array of heartfelt connections. Mommy! Jake tugged her hand, pointing to children chasing each other, laughter ringing out like music. Look, can we join? Yes. Let's South find our place. She enthused, heart erupting with a swell of happiness. In that moment, The darkness behind them flickered, a hiss escaping the shadowy figure as it faded back into the woods, its grasp now impotent. It was just a memory, not the definition of who they would become. As Sarah watched her children run, the laughter spreading like wildfire, she felt weight lift from her heart. She turned to her own reflection in a nearby stream. Her old self, fearful and overwhelmed, had been washed away. "Thank you for believing," she whispered to her children. "Thank you for helping me remember who we are." Together, they stepped into the warmth of belonging. They had faced their past, fought hard against the shadows, and instead of surrendering to darkness, they had carved a new path of light, joy, and connection. And as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, they laughed together, the echoes of fear now just whispers drowned in the melody of new beginnings. Don't let this story end here. Subscribe immediately to the channel to ensure you catch the next round of exclusive tales that will thrill and inspire. Smash that like button now. Every click feeds the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories. What would you have done? Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to explore these thrilling conclusions. Don't wait even one more second. True fans know how vital your support is.